Hey everybody, this is Dr. Maples. Today I want to answer a great question from one of my viewers. How do I change my advisor? Advising gets overlooked in the college experience. It's really one of the most important parts, though, of being a student. Your advisor makes sure that you graduate on time. They make sure that you take the classes that give you the skills and knowledge that you'll need for the job market or for graduate school. And yet it's something that we almost just think about as an afterthought a couple of, months into the semester. So I'm hoping students with a couple of the advising videos I've been putting up will start rethinking the advising process. But today I do want to answer that viewer question of how do you change your advisor? And along the way too, I want to give you some reasons why you might want to change your advisor. And also I want to talk about some of the issues that can come up depending on your major and where you are in the university. At the end of the day, I want to help your college experience be just a little bit easier than mine was, because mine was pretty rough. Anyways, we got a lot to talk about today. Let's get started. Before we begin, I had a really bad advisor in part of my undergrad. I had a day where I was sitting in their office and I knew what they were telling me was wrong. They were telling me I needed to take a couple of classes that I knew, absolutely knew, were in an older catalog, and they would not listen to me. So it became this situation of me just nodding my head. From that point on, I began a mission to advise myself every semester. And when I became a professor, advising became one of those central things that I made sure I did well and made sure I did it for all of my students that I could. So I want to pass that over to you as well. And today I want to give you some good reasons why you might want to change your advisor. One of the most common ones is that you want an advisor that really specializes in a job or skill set that really interests you. That's the best reason to pick an advisor because this is someone who can help you on the labor market, on graduate school as a reference. They can also give you the kind of career advice that you just can't really get from most professors. Likewise, this may be a professor who's previously done that job that you're wanting to do, maybe if you're in the business or accounting field, so they can give you really great advice. And as such, if you can have them as your advisor, it just makes sense. Likewise, you often will have a relationship with some professor in your major, someone that you've worked closely with, a professor that you just really get along with, or someone that's just kind of on the same wavelength as you. This is another reason to get them as an advisor, so long as they're a good advisor. Ask other students who are their advisees how things are going, maybe see if they have a ratemyprofessors.com rating that talks about advising and so forth. But if you've got a professor that you just love working with and they're in your major, reach out to them and say, hey, I'd love to have you as an advisor because it makes total sense. But you know what the most important reason of all of these three really is? If you have a bad advisor, it is up to you and you alone to do something about it. I promise you, the university and college, even your department, is not going to do something to help you. They will let you sit there for years, even leave their major often because of bad advising, and not change a thing. So, this is where I'm putting the charge on you today to make sure that if you're in the wrong advising situation for any of these reasons, or even others that I haven't mentioned, you have to do something about it. What I do want to do is walk you through some potential issues, some weird situations that might come up, and then I also want to walk you through that process of how do you actually go out changing your advisor. Good news is it's actually pretty easy in most situations, but let's get through those issues first, shall we? So, changing advisors actually has very few issues. The ones that we do have are things that you do need to consider, but generally speaking, it's not going to be a big problem to switch advisors. Now, I will say this, there are situations where your department may have only one advisor. And that's kind of a troubling situation because if they're also a bad advisor, you're going to have to think of some other solutions. We'll talk about those in just a moment. One of the big things that we see too is in really, really large departments where there's like, hundreds of students, there may be non professors that do all of the advising. In most cases, those folks are really good because that's all they do is advise students. But again, that can be a situation where you get that bad advisor, and we got to figure out a way to get away from that advisor. The next one is that you might be a brand new student and be an exploratory major. I see this a lot actually with students in my classes, in my intro classes, where they just say, Dr. Maples, I'm an exploratory major. I don't even know who my advisor is. And there have been times where I've even pulled up their information and they didn't even have an advisor assigned. Someone had just been randomly putting in classes for them. It was a really bad situation. So if you don't know who your advisor is and you're an exploratory major, that's a pretty big issue that we want to address. I think the biggest concern that I get from students that I've worked with in person on this very issue in the past is that, an advisor is going to be somehow offended or cause you problems because you chose to go with advising for someone else. I got to be honest, most professors would be overjoyed if you went to someone else's advising pool because in many cases we advise a lot of students, and if someone else is advising you, that's going to be just fine because that's one less student they had to advise. Likewise, if you don't really have a great relationship with that professor, they may not even know who you are. So it's not going to be a big problem in most cases for you to move to a different advisor. But again, it's going to be on you to do that. They're not going to do this for you. What I want to do in just a minute is walk through some very specific ways that we can change advisors and we can get you on your merry way to the graduation stage. So, if you didn't know it already, Dr. Maples is one of those people who always thinks about the good stuff and then the bad stuff. And so, we're going to have three really easy ways to change advisors, and then we're going to have three things are really bad ways to change your advisors. All right. So, let's get with the good ones first, and then we'll do the bad ones in just a moment. First one is the easiest. If you've got a professor in mind who has some particular skill set that you want to learn, or you just work well with them, or you really like them, or you just, fit well with that particular professor, just ask them. Say, hey, I'm being advised by such and such. Is there any way that I could switch over and have you advise me for my classes? That is the easiest, most simple, direct way to do that. And 100% that professor, yes or no, is going to be able to answer the follow-up question, how do I do that? There's generally going to be some paperwork. It may be them sending an email to the right person, but they're going to know how to do that. And 99 times out of 100, if you ask a professor that you know and have a relationship with, hey, can I be your advisee? They're going to say, yeah, sure. It's not a big deal because I've already got 50 others. What's one more, right? And in some cases, we'll actually trade you into the pool and we'll move someone else out of the pool. But again, I'm in one of those departments where we pretty much advise everyone's advisees because it just works out well. Some departments are a little more linear about that, but if you have a professor in mind, just ask them. They will give you a great answer. Likewise, if you're not really sure who might be a good advisor, you can actually talk to your mentor or your faculty member that you trust and just say, hey, I don't feel like I'm getting the advising experience that I need. Can you give a suggestion for someone who could advise me? A couple of things are going to happen there. First off, they might just take you on as their advisee. So that's an easy way going back to point one, right? The second thing that'll happen is they're probably going to know if that particular person who's advising you is a problem advisor. It is just something that faculty know that some faculty don't do a good job with advising, and they're probably going to try to help you out, whether that's getting you into their pool or getting you with someone else so that you can get better advising. The third one is too, you could also just bring it up as sort of a conversation point and say, hey, I'm thinking about some skills that I'm specifically interested in for when I hit the labor market. Is there someone in this department who might be able to advise me who has those skills? This is a really easy way to kind of broach the subject in a very broad after class kind of way. You just walk up to your professor and say this. And generally speaking, they'll be able to give you a name or a suggestion or something like that, and you'll be good to go. Now, with all three of these, most likely you can follow up with, by the way, how do I do that? Most of the time, it's going to be the professor sending an email to the right place that will change you over to that person's advising pool, or sending you to another person that you can talk to, and they'll be able to change it. Generally speaking, students can't just change their advisor. It's something that almost always will go through the faculty. So there's no form on the website or something like that. You're going to have to go generally through someone in your major, and they're going to be able to get that fixed for you. I promised you three good ones. Let's go to those three rough ones, and some of these I know from experience. First off, if you're in one of those departments where there's only one advisor, you can basically take that advising appointment, get the information from them, which generally includes some kind of registration access code that you'll need to plug into the university system to register for classes, and then basically go to a faculty member that you can trust on the side and just get them to advise you. Just come to them and say, hey, this is what they told me to take. I feel like I should take this, this, and this. Does this sound like a good plan to you? Could you kind of give me some ideas? If you're in one of those programs that's so big with the major that the professors aren't advising students, they'll still know what's required for the major to graduate. So this is a great way to get that code that you need from that advisor, but then get better advice and then get yourself registered for classes and you'll be fine. My fourth one is that if you're an exploratory major, you just need to declare a major. I have to tell you, my experience with exploratory majors has always been they get some of the worst advising on campus. They get random emails saying, take this class, and this class. There's no connection. They don't know who to write with questions. So, my advice to them every time I meet them is declare a major. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't care what it is. It could be anything on campus, even the underwater basket weaving program. Do they still have their major? But you can declare a major. It won't be a penalty. It won't be a problem. There's not even a fee in 99% of the cases. But declare a major, get an advisor who you can actually talk to and let them know you're just exploring their major. You want to take your gen eds, you want to get those, basically first 2 years of your college experience done, and you also want to explore some other majors. But for the moment, you want to be one of their majors. 99 times out of 100, professors and majors are not going to have a problem with that. Some random exceptions might be social work, nursing, engineering. These are basically some really, busy majors where they're getting you into some very specific accredited degrees. Those might not be a good example. But you know what is a good example? Sociology. Your sociology professor is going to be a great person, and 99 times out of 100, they will help you. In fact, if you've got questions about that process, you can leave me some questions below, and I'll be happy to help. I might even know the answer if you're at my university. Who knows? The last one is something that I learned personally. When I was at my university, I had bad advising, as I've mentioned, really even through my graduate program. And so I learned that the best person to advise me was me. I would make sure that I knew exactly what I needed to graduate. I would make sure I knew when the classes would be offered, and I knew even the classes that offered skills that I wanted. I would make sure I knew when they were going to be taught because I would talk to the professors. I would get my rack code from my advisor, who was especially bad at advising. And then I would talk to other faculty, but I would also look at the university's websites, my major's websites, and I would make sure I knew exactly what I needed and when. Truth be told, my undergrad I got through super quick. My graduate program I got through just as quick. Little semester maybe extra on my master's, but that's another video for another day. Nonetheless, I knew what I needed to graduate, and I was good to go. I cannot stress this enough. If you're getting bad advising, it's on you to do something about it. First off, if you're getting genuinely bad advice, you are always going to be your best advocate. You got to speak up for yourself. Talk to a professor you trust, get yourself in a different advisor, get with them, or, even just get some secondary advising on the side. Also, take the time to study what your major requires, know when those classes are offered, and be able to advise yourself. That way, when your advisor gives you bad advice, you can say, okay, and then you actually register for the right classes later because they're not going to follow up on you if they're that bad of an advisor. Second, and this one's a little difficult, if you're genuinely getting bad advising, you need to let your department chair know. The department chair is basically the person who runs that program. They're the person who would hire and fire, in some cases, that advisor that's giving you bad advice. If there's an issue, you should really let them know, especially if the advisor's missing appointments, they don't seem to know what they're talking about, or you can just see that they're not able to do their job. You need to let the department know because you got to take care of some other students as well as yourself. Finally, I have to say, if you're not really sure how to go about changing an advisor, if you're nervous about it, or if you're just one of those first year students and you can't figure out who to contact, you can always look for advising offices around campus. You can Google your university or college's name and advising office, and something will come up. You can look for first gen advising, first generation student advising. Even if you aren't one, they can answer the question and send you in the right way to get you advising advice. Or leave a comment below. I've been doing this for 10 years as an advisor and as a professor, and I'm pretty good at it at this point because, frankly, I advised myself for almost my entire college experience, and I graduated on time. So that's all we've got for today. Again, be your best advocate by taking care of yourself. Be a strong advocate for yourself. Everything's going to be fine. If you got questions, leave comments below. We'll see you next time.